Welcome to Think Different podcast, where we've created a platform for each and everyone to be authentic about their stories. And now we have a beyond promising young man who decided to carve his own journey and who now shares his inspirational story. Let's delve into his interview.
Okay, so welcome, Mr. Oliphant. I have the pleasure of speaking with you. You're such a busy person, but thank you for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to be
Yes,
a part
indeed.
of this production.
Thank you
So we're
so
going to have
much.
an open discussion about, mental health and if you have
hmm
ever had your first hand experiences.
hmm
So welcome once again.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome also to our listeners.
Yes.
I'm very happy to be here on this podcast just to share some of my personal experiences. As I have, been. I've worked in a number of industries. I've been to a lot of institutions, and based on my community engagement, etc., I've always maintained some level of experience in assisting persons who are trying to find coping strategies to deal with personal mental health issues. So it's really good to be here, Think Different, and I am just so excited to share whatever it is that I can to your listeners.
Yes, and for the listeners who may be wondering why he's saying think different, of course, we're going mainly by the branding. So, okay, so have you ever had an experience of
hmm
any sort of mental breakdowns? It can be
Yeah.
stress, depression, anxiety, which is very popular.
Yes.
So, what experience have you had?
Well, one of the personal experiences I've had was when I had to leave my home country, Jamaica, and migrate for educational purposes, and also to do something to better myself. And one of the experiences that I've had is adjusting to a new culture, which a number of persons I know, a number of your listeners, uh, you know, whether you've moved across country or you've moved outside of your country to a new environment, one of the things that always plagues your mind is, are you good enough for where you are? And what are the support that you need in order to be successful um, as it pertains to whatever journeys it is that you're embarking on? My experience, because I grew up with I had the privilege and of growing up with my brothers and my parents. And when my first brother left home, my first eldest brother left home, it had dawned on me a little bit differently, because I'm the last child, and my brothers have always been there to support me in whatever it is that I'm doing. And when I did things that were outside of the scope of my expectations, so to speak, they were always there to put me in line. So it was when I left home for the very first time, and I came to a different country, was when mentally it played with me a little bit, because that personal support system that you would have had that was in close proximity to you, I didn't have that anymore. And there were times when, and I must pause to say that, mental health is something that in Jamaica, for example, is something that's not taken very seriously. uh, I grew up seeing persons who were having mental issues in the streets, be it in downtown Kingston or wherever, and people would just laugh and mistreat them. But mental health is something that also spirals from the most minute thing. Can be you just moving away from family. It affects you. So I experienced a little bit of depression. Of course, I did experience some anxiety, even though I had some support with me. I It plagued me very hard, um, because I was in another country all by myself. Of course, I had
Mm.
some family members, but it never compensates for having those persons around you. And I have faced that situation where I need to go back home. Should I go back home and forget about pursuing my own personal dreams? But finally, I must say that for that particular experience, it was my family then who came to my support, to
Mm.
uplift my spirit, to get me back on track mentally, to refocus and to remember what my sole intentions were when I decided to make that significant change in my life.
And that's good because
Mhm.
you had such a good support system. But I
Yes,
know breaking away, getting so distant from that support system had
yeah,
been very tough and it has
indeed.
been a while. But let us, press rewind
Hmm.
to growing up, school days.
Yes,
How had you navigated in, just the school setting? Because I can remember you were so outspoken, you were just driven in everything, you were
yeah,
just up and going, when persons will say, and thinking twice, you were like, no, let us do it now. You might never know
yes,
how it turns out.
yes.
So, how did you manage in that type of, setting?
Thanks for that question. That's a very great question. Think different. Yes, you remember my days in school. I was always outspoken. I always was speaking up for persons, for example, in my class who didn't weren't able to speak on behalf, they were very shy and reserved. One of my coping strategy growing up was that my family, the skills, the values that was instilled in me from my parents and my brothers when I stepped out of bound, they would bring me right back to the front of the class,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak. And another thing that helped me was that I grew up in the church. I grew up as a Seventh-day Adventist, and still am. I still do practice my religion as best I can. I'm not perfect, but I had the support of my community, and my community not only included my my parents, but it included my church family. It
Mm,
included members of the community uh, that I grew up in, and also school. Growing up, I was not one of the most popular child, and what I say one of the most popular child, I mean I never played sports, so
right.
to speak. Especially in high school. In primary school, I did, and while I was doing that, I was more focused. I used to play soccer in primary school, and then I got injured one time, and then my focus had shifted. And what my focus had shifted to and how I coped growing up, think different, is that I was able to channel my energies in helping people who were unable to help themselves.
Mm,
So when I started high school, apart from doing community outreach projects with my church members, and my father growing up was always involved in politics, I always saw that my father was always engaging with members of the community, helping those who are in need. So when I went to high school, I joined a number of service organizations such as Rotary International, such as uh, Toastmasters. And what this allowed for me was to start moving away from a fixed mindset as to thinking that I am the only person who is in this world and I don't need any help or I don't need to help anyone. And my growing mindset from that was to help others who are in need because I had that experiential learning from my parents, watching my mom lecture class and help students to go through their tough times as well, were some things that had assisted me in growing a little bit of inner strength for myself.
which is good. Which is good. I like the fact that your family is flexible and they're supportive in what you're doing. Not saying,
Hmm.
remember that we wanted to steer in this direction, so you can't just take on this,
Yes,
journey because we don't want you to go that way. So it's good when you have a family that supports you in everything that you
yes,
do and is
yeah,
flexible enough to say, okay, yeah, we understand that you want to do this, but it's not off the religion. We wanted to
yes,
do this once it's church life.
yeah,
You have a lot of families that are strict with the church.
yes, indeed.
So that's a thing now. You started out going to Adventist school,
Yes, I
but
did,
then
Victor Dixon.
you went now to what would I say though? This secular school, Bellear High. I'm sure they
Yes.
won't have a problem with me saying the school's name, but it's a good school.
Yes,
because
yeah.
I was saying it to somebody that you had said these words to me. Halfway reach to the place you want to reach. Come here, so I said, "Oh my God!" I never forget those words, and I always say it to my friends. I say, "No, Sam said this to me,"
Yeah.
and I was thinking to myself, "I must say, no, Sam, right?" Because I think with the institution, it was just really caging. It's just like you're
Hmm.
stuck into one culture. They don't give you
Hmm.
a chance to kind of break free. I don't
Right.
think the setting was like that. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, this is a policy. You should work with this. Yeah, we understand that you want to do many things, but here is what we're presenting you with,
Yeah.
and you have to
And
just work with it.
indeed, and one of the reasons why I had changed, I've always attended religious institutions from kindergarten coming up, from primary school especially. One of the reasons for my change was that at the time when I was in fourth form, I didn't feel as though I was fulfilling my purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And I did in fact, have a traumatic experience in
Oh
high
wow.
school. And it signaled something that I did not want to necessarily uh, go into a direction that would be, uh, I don't want to speak much on it,
Mm-hmm.
but I changed and went to Bel Air because I saw that there was a lot more opportunities. Um, and there were a lot more courses that I wanted to do, social sciences more than rather than business, and that was what attracted me to Bel Air. And I went to Bel Air, and I was the president for the Interact Club. As again,
Just say you grow wings. You grow wings, and that
right?
was just it for you. That was just the
Yes,
breakthrough, and nothing else could have stopped you, which was very good.
yeah, it
Very, very,
was.
very good. I think you had saw the vision, and it just determined say that's where you're going. Yes, I
Yes,
understand. It may not be, off your religion, but you have to
yes,
work with what's growing you at the
yeah.
moment.
And I must say as well that even growing up in my home, my parents were strict, yes, when it came on to
Mm-hmm.
many things, but they allowed us to think independently, but also think um with being comfortable, right, in our
Right.
own
Yeah.
space and in our skin, but never letting go of who we are in terms of
Mm-hmm.
the things that we're trying to achieve and what we must do in order to achieve those things, right? I have a brother who also went to Victor Dixon, Omar, who is a pastor and a lawyer in Jamaica. He's the first Seventh-day Adventist pastor in the Caribbean to be called to the bar. And Omar
Mm-hmm.
was the head boy at Victor Dixon, right? At Victor Dixon, yes, he was. And one thing
Yeah.
Omar has always maintained, even though, having gone to UWI to have done his law degree, Omar always maintained that he doesn't shift his religious beliefs to accommodate for studying. So he doesn't study from Friday evening going right into Saturday, etc. But our parents always said, just remember who you are. Try to attain what it is that you are, and the praying parents that they're always there to support us and uplift us and pray for us as well. I also remember when I was a long haul truck driver. I was a long haul truck driver for 16 months in Vancouver here in Canada, and I could call my parents 2 a.m. every morning, or they would call me at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning when they know I'm driving. My brothers
Oh
would call
wow.
me, and my brother as well, Jan, who who is also very keen on, very keen on very keen on self-fulfillment and ensuring that you are doing the best that you can. All my brothers are. My family would be calling me at whatever time during the mornings, in the throughout the night. They would be praying for me, and they would, give me that moral support that I really needed. And as we're speaking about, this mental health as well, I felt as though that this 16 month was a real trial for me,
Mm.
because I have never been by myself for that long of a time,
Oh wow.
consistently every day driving legally 11 hours in the day in the US and 13 hours per day in Canada, and getting 10-hour breaks, sleeping in a
Oh
truck,
wow.
and not being able to, go to the gym or see family and friends was something that really affected me very much. I pretended as though it didn't. I didn't want my family to worry because this was a journey that I wanted to take for myself. So as an extrovert, as you know me to be an introvert in a space all by myself,
Yes.
think different is something that was really, it wasn't my forte. But
Yeah.
I can say that the experience waking up every morning, seeing a different sunset was something that was really awesome. Driving through 46 states in the United States of America and driving through most provinces in Canada and waking up and seeing that every day was really good. But
Mhm.
mentally it took a strain on me.
Yes. Eventually get used to the routine.
Yes.
Everybody will say, yeah, get used to it. You have to just do what you have to do or whatever. It's
Mhm.
not the best thing to say to somebody to say you have to do what you have to do, because yes,
Yes.
you allow that person to say, hey, it's okay to mask, suppress, but inside they're actually breaking down, and that's not
Hmm.
good, because
Yes.
then it attracts a lot of different things that can happen to you health wise, because you're just moving around and you're just it's like a zombie
Hmm.
type of experience.
Indeed. And that zombie type of experience that you speak of was one definitely that came about right at the tail end of 2019 into 2020 when we were told that we had to stay home because of the pandemic. And
Right,
a lot of persons who previously may have never had the opportunity to even stay by themselves. You're always going out, you're always meeting people, whether you're going to parties or events, for work or personal, recreational, reasons. When the pandemic hit, it took a toll on a lot of people, and it was also a learning curve, right?
right,
Because now
yeah,
you have to learn how to either be by yourself or be in the same space as somebody that you may not have been before the pandemic even started.
right,
So it all comes down to your tenacity to believe in yourself and ensure that on those negative days, you try to remember what the positive things were that attracted you to whatever energies or forces there may be that you're trying to achieve, either by career wise or for self development. Right? As you said before, I've always
right,
seen a
yeah.
lot of things way before my time. Growing up, they always say, Elvis, you act like you're an old man. Yeah, yes, but it's because I saw things a lot differently. I still do. I try to see things in the future, and how it is that would be able to be of benefit to me and my personal self development.
Yeah, because and it's so surprising that you had touch on, persons say you were acting like an old man.
Yeah,
It's a good thing,
yeah,
because when you mold yourself like that from early, it doesn't
yes,
mean that it's taking away your fun time, but you have to remember that time is limited, and we're not sure when our time is, about to cut. We
indeed.
can't say, oh, now we're yourself, get old and gray. Oh, you so sure? We're so
Right?
sure. But
Yeah,
you don't know, so
yeah,
by tomorrow you might not wake up. And that's also reality. We're not going to get out of this life alive.
yes,
So we have to ensure that we put in place certain things. And I've seen over the years with persons, older, or probably them mid older stage, and they look on younger person like, how you have this and you're so young or whatever. But they're not understanding that the generation is changing.
it
They're
is.
they're acquiring things from early.
It is.
When in their generational time, persons used to, acquire certain things at a particular age. I think they
Yes,
pinpoint that, okay, you can have a child within your 20s or so, because when you're fresh, you can have a child, and then something there when you reach your 30s. So there was always a time period. And I think a lot of them suffer from stress. But,
hmm,
of course, they just suppress and mask it because,
hmm,
hey, you're going to get over it. Somebody out there have a bigger problem.
indeed.
Again, I say it's not good. But I don't believe in giving yourself time limit. Yes, you can have a goal that you want to accomplish, but
Yes.
don't say when we reach 30 or when we reach 40, I'm gonna do this, because when you reach them age and you don't acquire, what are you gonna do?
That's when
You're
the
gonna be
depression,
stuck.
the
You're gonna
anxiety.
say,
Yeah,
I'm a failure. And I
indeed.
think even going to school and even in the household, they don't say failure is good,
It's
because you
okay.
learn and it molds you to improve. But
Yes.
when we usually hear about failure, you're feeling
That's
so
it. You're
so
done.
to reach you, you're done. You're not gonna win a life. You just feel
Yes.
like I hit that for you. And they
Yes.
plant this thing in our brain, and then Anxiety. You don't
Yeah,
want to fail.
indeed. And
You don't want to fail.
yeah, you're definitely right. And if you feel it's going to be a problem,
Yep.
as you speak about failure, I must say that even when I was when I went to university, that's when I remember failing one course two times.
Hmm.
And when I went to UA, I immediately started a Rotaract club there. Um, and then in my second semester, I went into student government. So in my second semester, I was the deputy campus chair. And I was, my first semester of university, I was a national, I was what was it, what do you call it? A youth parliamentarian.
Right.
I was a youth parliamentarian. I was a liaison representative for all the Rotaract clubs from Negril Point to Ocho Rios Bend, tailing off at St. Mary. And it's like if I had not done something to take myself away from the stressors of life, I don't think my coping strategy would have been great. And because I was so involved in community related activities, my last year I was a campus chair, the president for the guild, and that was one of my most hectic year, my second year going into third year, because you're so heavily involved and I was so afraid of failing. But I didn't fail, think different, because I didn't know better. I failed because sometimes we have to fail in order to grow. Sometimes we have to make mistakes in life in order to find our truest potential. Sometimes we have to look at ourselves in the mirror. Sometimes I look at myself in the mirror and I say, Elvis, you didn't do well yesterday, but you know what you're going to do? I'm going to make it up today. I'm going to try and see what it is that I can do now to affect change for the immediate, short, and long term. If long term, so that I can continue just for my own mental space and my own mental health, to ensure that I stay above what society thinks and what they're telling us that we should or should not be. And I
Hmm.
remember, finally, I remember my mother, because my father was working at the time. So usually, my parents would come to parent teacher conference. And because at the time in primary school, I was, boys are not always focused as girls are. We want the more hands-on things and stuff.
Just say females, women, girls mature faster. And the first one than the
I,
male, the boys.
you know what? I don't want to put myself in any trouble. So, so let me. I,
Wanna take long for mature. So just say, ladies mature faster than the
well,
males.
in some regards, I would agree. In some regards, I would call it a 50-50 split. 50-50 split, right?
Still too much, but okay.
Yeah.
We'll work with that.
Okay. And my mom, I just want to be safe. I don't want to, offend anybody, so to speak.
It's a safe space.
Yes. And my teacher looked at my mom and looked at my grade report because I wasn't doing well at that time. Because, I just wanted to go play and have fun.
Right.
And she looked at my mother and said, Mrs. Oliphant, I don't think that your son is going to make it out of primary school.
Oh wow.
And when she said it, my mother, who is an educator for years, for most of her life, no, it's I think over 40 years, serving in the educational space. When the teacher told my mom that, um, it did something to me, for the
Mm.
rest of my life, and I think that was the launching pad where I said to myself that I'm not going to allow for society to dictate or to put me in a certain box or category and determine what my future is going to be. It was very hurtful, I must say, very hurtful. And to this day, I remember my mom always reminding me that that experience is not something that will determine who I'm going to become in the future. And I'm very humbled to say that my experiences, even up until when I left high school at Bel Air, um, the amount of things that I had accomplished at that point in time in my life, think different, was significantly more than the average 60-year-old, because I promised myself I will do well academically. I'm not an A student, but I will ensure that I get the I don't just pass by the skin of my teeth, but I will
Mm-hmm.
work hard enough to ensure that I come out in being the best version of myself and not what somebody else thinks that we ought to be. And I think mentally, what this does is that I shifted my mindset because of all those negative things and what people, look at you and say you're going to do or not accomplish in your life. So those are just some things that when it comes down to failure, sometimes we have to fail twice in order
True.
to
True.
become the
That's
best.
true.
And ironically, the course that I failed in university was an English course. And last year, I got the opportunity to be an English professor. Of course, I'm not teaching the in-depth part of English, but I taught
Yeah.
report writing using my transferable skills from my
Oh
marketing
wow.
experiences,
Look at
public
that.
relations. So, and the first thing I say to my students in the class when I started to flip what that teacher had said to me and my mom during that one session, just because I was not focused enough at that point in time.
Right.
I
Yeah.
say to my students that you're all walking in here today in doubt whether or not you're going to get the course content or whether or
Yeah.
not you're going to pass or fail. My duty as your professor is to ensure that you get that the course content is delivered, number one, and that if you are not understanding, don't ever feel that if you fail at one thing, at one assignment, that there's not enough room for you to grow before the end of the semester. And having
Mm.
lectured 77 students, I'm happy to say that all 72 of them, there was attrition, some persons had dropped out,
That's
they
really good.
started late. And 72 of my students had an average of B plus in my class, and they really worked hard
That's
for it.
really good. That's really good accomplishment right there.
You know?
Coming from that story that, they look at you and they
Yes.
deem that this is gonna be your
Yeah.
future. Oh, you're not God. How can you deem somebody and
Yeah.
you're not God? It's best and I think a lot of teachers have this habit. I don't know if it's how they were trained,
Mhm.
but I don't think they should do that. It's not the
It's not the
best thing.
training. It's not the training because my father used to lecture. My mother has been lecturing even though she's
Hmm.
still doing some things every now and then. And I have brothers who have also, all my brothers have lectured and or some are still lecturing. And it's not the training, it's the person, it's the individual. And that's why I
Mm,
always say it is very important for you to not measure up people, but measure the
yes,
advice that somebody is giving you. Because if they are telling you something and it doesn't match with your understanding of yourself, that's why it's important to be self-aware and
that's
also
true.
to test ourselves when we're going through good times and bad times so that we can know where our pressure gauges are. So
True.
don't let anyone determine and tell you that, you're not going to come out to anything good because your grades are XYZ. No, people don't need that. It's the individual who is fighting something with themselves, right?
Hmm.
And they're using it as a whipping tool on students to make them feel as if they're less than. So the teacher training it does not reflect what the teacher training is meant to help students to learn and for teachers to motivate them.
That's true. That's true.
Always call me.
We're back on live. We're live. Oh,
Thank
yes.
you.
So yes, let us get to the wraps of things.
Yeah.
And what advice would you have given someone who comes from a similar background as yours, and not just the background in terms of just household
Family.
wise, but
Yeah.
the school settings
Yeah.
and just the type of environment overall. What advice would you have given to that person?
I would say to my students, I have another set, I have 10 students who are now doing their internship at some community organizations. And I said to them, listen, walk into that room every day with confidence. Walk into that room every day knowing that you are a success story. Don't walk in as though you're the latter part of anything. walk in with confidence. And friends are also important too. Some of the friends that I have maintained, even you will think different. We may not be in the same space every single day, but if there should be a text message or something that's sent,
Mm.
it's just as though we've been talking for, 365 days for the past 10 years, right?
Yes,
I hadn't spoken to you, probably this long in quite some time, but we've always
for
checked in.
sure.
You
Yeah,
know, I've had some friends, especially from Bel Air, who have still maintained good relationships with, and even though we don't speak every day, they're still daring because we've learned so much from each other. We've grown, not apart, but we've grown up in terms of, you know, ascending to a different level of where we are in our lives. That when I was at UA as well, doing all these community service activities, um, being on political campaigns as well with my father, just reaching out to people in the community. What I would say to you folks is that ensure that your support system, and even if you don't have a support system, right? Ensure that you find someone that you can confide in, that you can support, right? There are persons who I have helped in the past, and I've completely forgot what I've done for them because I wasn't doing it for the likes, as a popular reggae artist would sing in Jamaica. We're not doing it for the likes. We're doing it because I'm doing it genuinely because I love myself first and I want to extend that care to my humankind, right? So I would encourage persons that not all backgrounds are the same. Not everybody has the same opportunity to grow up with their parents, their father and their mother in the same home. Not everybody has that support of brothers and sisters. But if you believe in yourself, once you believe in yourself and you have nailed that one group opportunity that you're ultimately wanting to achieve, and you have that friend to say, Elvis, I know you're not good in this right now, right? Just like an interview. When they're asking an interview certain questions, do you know all the systems that they're requiring you to work on? Do you know all the steps that are required to carry out your job functions every day? No. But with self-confidence and with some of your experiential learning that you have done before in different sectors, like, your transitional jobs into a profession or something, you're now able to see that you're able to rise above and live above the negativity of things, right? So you have to have a good support system, and friends are is very critical to your development because you
hmm,
can be swimming in the wrong pool of friends, and it becomes a drain more than swimming in the beautiful Caribbean Ocean on the white sands there of Negril and Ocho Rios and Doctors Cave Beach, just learning more about life and what great opportunities there are with other persons who can help to lift uh your 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 lift you from where you are,
that's
right?
that's true, and that's a very powerful advice to give to persons
Mm-hmm.
because of course, people have the mindset like, oh, I'm growing up in a supportive household. What about me? How can I take some of
Yeah,
his steps, or how can I take some of his experiences
yeah,
and utilize them as a tool for myself? So I'm glad the way in which you split the advice, say, hey,
indeed.
persons who are from my type of group or my upbringing, and persons who may not have the ideal upbringing like
Yeah,
I did, here's the advice. So that was very good. I do
yeah,
appreciate it. And thanks for being a part of this interview. It's a pleasure
right.
having you here. It's an honor,
Indeed.
I should say, having you here, taking you out of your
It's
busy
a
schedule.
Indeed, if I didn't have to run to another appointment, like my days are, mostly now everything is run by appointments, and life gets busy. I've always been busy, but now, it becomes a point where we have to strategize. But and even with the business, think different. Make time for yourself. There are so many things in this world that catches our eye, right? And there are so many
Mhm.
other things in this world that we also have to claw back sometimes and say, okay, this is me time, right? One final thing I will leave with you, folks, is that I remember I was a supervisor at a service, at a Shell service station in Jamaica. And I remember I met with a youth, And at that time, in my capacity as well, I was working. I was a youth parliamentarian, so we're going into the communities where vulnerable youths are. And one final appeal I'll make to individual is that don't judge these folks. Do not judge someone because they may not seem like who we are. Because a lot of persons may not come with the a lot of individuals think different, may not come and look as how we want them to be, but they
Mm-hmm.
have so much knowledge, they have so much talent that they can offer to the world, and all they're waiting for is just for someone to embrace them and say, youth, you know here's an opportunity, right? Who is that bird in the hand that's better than the bird in the bush, right? It's better to give somebody an opportunity who is right in front of us now. We know we can coach and develop and mentor them, so that they can advance and acclimatize to the best version of themselves. And finally, folks, just keep pushing. Everything is hard right now. I'm not saying that my life is perfect. I do have those days where I feel down, but I seek sometimes to pull from either a prayer of strength, from a word of encouragement, or again, just calling a friend and asking them, how is your day going? And then look at yourself
True.
and say, huh, am I really having a bad day? Right? Sometimes
True.
we're looking at ourselves, we're going through some things and we're saying, I can't manage, I can't bother, and I'm done with
The
this, I'm done with that.
frustration. Yeah.
Frustration and all of that. But just phone somebody else and say, hey, what's going on, buddy? How you doing? Right? And you just realize and
Yeah.
say, I'm here complaining over pearls, right? And they're
Right.
they're they're trying to face, they're trying to navigate themselves from stones, rocks and stones. So
Right. Yeah.
that's what I would leave. Just be positive. You are loved. Love yourself. Look yourself in the mirror every day and give that affirmation of self. And remember that confidence doesn't begin with a capital C. It begins with a capital S for self-confidence. So once you start with that self, love yourself first, and then you can be the broader expansion to yourself that ultimately you definitely are destined to become.
Thank you.
Think different. Thanks so
Ah.
much for having me.